Welcome back to Power Lunch West Africa. Now, African markets have been defined by the returns that they are able to generate for investors. This is reflected in recent disclosures by some of Africa's leading asset managers and is a key point noted at this year's Africa's Pensions and Sovereign Funds Investment Forum, currently holding in London. I will now cross to Michael Oyibola, Managing Director at FBN Capital Asset Management, who is also joining us from that conference in London. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. So, what are the big takeaways for you at this conference this year? I imagine that Africa is in the spotlight, even for investors that perhaps 5-10 years ago would never have considered investing outside the traditional areas such as Europe and the US. They are now looking to places like Africa. And can you just give us a sense of the appetite for African risk right now?
Well, when you have a continent that has about 1.1 billion people and a GDP growth rate of about 5.6, it does attract a lot of attention. You do have Nigeria, which is growing at an average of 7%, and all these are actually being showcased at this conference. Yes, you do have Kenya, Uganda, South Africans present at this conference, but we did come here to showcase Nigeria as well. Nigeria said growing at about 7% GDP growth. We have about 167 million people. The macro story is there. So we now just have to drill it down and showcase the investment opportunities we have. The Minister of Agriculture did mention about the agri being a business going forward, and this has to be showcased. So we just have to showcase the opportunities out there, which would actually generate returns in excess of what you would get in the developed world, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in power, real estate, infrastructure, FMCG, the traditional oil and gas, telecoms, and ICT. The growth rates are there, and the opportunities are there.
Yeah, I know that you manage unit trusts, collecting investment schemes. What's the appetite for the, if I can put it this way, the not so traditional asset classes in Africa? I'm talking things like mutual funds, real estate. Is there a big appetite from where you, from your interaction with people participating in this forum?
The honest truth is there is, because that is actually what's going to provide alpha for most of the investors. Outside the traditional equity market, people are looking for even real returns. Yes, the stock market has run about 29% this year, but then when you compare it to federal government bond giving about 13 or 14%, people actually want more long-term sustainable returns.
Right.
So there is appetite out there. There is appetite for the agricultural sector, the power sector, real estate. There was a fund manager here who was talking about building shopping malls. ShopRite itself said it wants to build about 800 stores in Nigeria.
Right.
So the appetite is there. We are expecting an attracting inflow of capital into Africa in Nigeria, and investors are excited.
Right. Of course, a lot of people talk about innovation in dealing with the challenges that Africa presents. So can you just speak to that point? What type of innovations can we anticipate in terms of products that asset managers may be providing to investors who are a little wary about taking Africa risk going forward?
Well, you have to start with the traditional products. Look, whether you're going to have a money market fund, a bond fund, an equity fund, or a private equity fund, which is focusing one on infrastructure, one focusing on real estate, another one focusing on natural resources, one on energy, right? People just have to learn to diversify, to spread their risk, as well as take up opportunities within this space. So I'm not sure there's too much innovation around it. It is basically just coming up with these right products and right tailored products with the proper structures in place to harness the opportunities that exist in these markets.
Right, and of course, from what you're saying, I guess the appetite is certainly there. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael Oyibola, joining us from London, talking us through the appetite for Africa risk at an investment forum in London.